So we'll do this the first time. Either we will be okay or I will kill him. So we'll see how that could work. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and present today. I can say, hand on heart, I hope this is better than my knowledge of Spanish because I just keep relaxing to French. So I really hope we get this right. So we're going to be a little provocative, and I know we have the session directly after lunch, which is always quite interesting. So my background is actually, funny enough, I trained and worked at MHA, Baker Tilly, when I first started qualified accountancy, and then I spent 15 years building my own organization, which was a global UK business employing circa 1,500 staff. So I've sat in the chair of those in here that are the SMEs, and then I returned back to MHA, which is now MHA Baker Tilly International, 4 years ago to lead sustainability. But I've been doing it since 2004-05, so it's not my first rodeo. But I'd just like to start with a little bit of a perspective about why this is important. And some of you may have seen this before. It was something that was invented in the US by a philosophy professor, that when you look at that jar, is that jar currently full? Well, there's apples in it, right? Is it full now? Looking full, yeah? Now it's full. And if you break that down, the apples represent, if you take the jar as a business or a company or an institution, the apples represent the important stuff, the people, the assets, customers, money, cash. The coffee beans represent everything else that's important, your brand, your identity, supply chain. And then the sand, which arguably was just all the bits you don't really think about on a day-to-day basis. You can put family in whichever box you wish there, by the way, depending on the entrepreneurs in the room. But in that sand, you've got ESG, you've got data. But if you take out the apples and the coffee and you just put the sand in, will you fit everything in? And the answer is no. Before, the sand wasn't necessarily as important as it is now. It is now fundamental. You cannot have a business without data and integrated into sustainability. And if we did an honest straw poll in here, how many people realistically would have adopted sustainability in their business prior to regulation? And I've done this many times, and I've called people out over it. And the answer would be certainly well below half would. Well, we're doing it because we kind of need to do it, because our customers expect it. However, is it integrated into technology, AI, IoT? We've moved from Google, when sustainability really first got kicked off, to AI and chatbots. ESG is maturing. Is it where it needs to be yet? Most people in here, I think, are in European jurisdictions, so the EU. By the way, just a quick apology. I am so sorry for what the UK did. I'm just sorry. Just sorry. No. But my point is, you're facing really significant regulation, and different sectors do things differently. I was listening with absolute rapture to the health presentation about the role of technology into that. Excuse me. So, where do we go from here? And I've always wanted to say hello Valencia, or hello or Europe calling, or something like that. So I just had to get that off my chest. So, okay. What do we think technology is doing? It's evolving rapidly. AI is transforming the way in which we work, the way in which I work. I'm an auditor and accountant as well. And we've talked about the Internet of Things today, but why aren't we talking about the Internet of Sustainable Things? Where does sustainability sit in all of this? And I think that's absolutely fundamental. So you're going to hear both myself and Eman talk about the IOST, which is where we think it lands, and that's very much part of the DNA of MHA. So just for information, we're a global firm. We're across circa 141 territories. We employ about 43,000 people in 658 offices. I'm based in the UK and Europe, don't spend a lot of time in America at the minute. But we are very much a global business, and as a global business, we need to do things in a global way. So where do we see the Internet of Sustainable Things and sustainability? Well, we're already using it. IoT, whichever way you collate it, is technology using to collect data, right? Fundamental. Every person that's been on this stage today has talked about data capture, all of you. And then the use of data capture. And I was always taught that what you put into a data system is what you get out of it. So if you enter rubbish into a data system, whether it's the most state-of-the-art handheld technology or the work that one of the manufacturer was talking about to do with boilers and power, you'll get rubbish out, which you'll classify potentially as user error or system error. So from an accountancy perspective, talking about my world, we rely on accurate data, we rely on reporting, we are also very much guided by regulations and how we interpret data. Now, if you go back 3 years, were we using AI and the Internet of Things, if you like, in terms of hardware within our policies and procedures and the way in which we audit? No, we were not. We had a digital system, but we did exactly what we did with most of you will be audited in here. We did exactly what we used to do when we carried out 2 huge pilot cases of files, usually last year's files, so we could make sure we knew what we were doing. And all we did was put that on a digital system. Exactly the same thing, just on a computer. What we've now evolved over the last 4 years is how we interpret that data and use things with technology to make it effective, and that's where artificial intelligence comes in. Have any of you heard of the bias in AI? Well, I'll tell you a brief story. So, in the US, a university, I can't remember which university it was now, but a university in the US did a study of lending in a particular state. I think it was Michigan. And they looked at gender and ethnic mix, and they found that non-white mix were actually paying up to 6 basis points more for their lending than white through the AI tool, because the AI had inbuilt bias in it. Absolutely fascinating. And AI is directed by what you put into it. So if you put data in, you get data out, but it's the interpretation of that data and how we as auditors and accountants and you use that data and convert it into information. We have to make a judgment with everything we do. And this is evolution, not revolution. You will hear, and I think my colleague from EY was talking about digital security. If any of people in our profession turn around and go, we've got these amazing AI tools that we can solve all your accounting issues and we can do a really efficient audit, this is the 4th revolution of sustainability. Sustainability is the 4th revolution integrated into artificial intelligence and technology. But it is a work in progress. It really is. And we actually almost act as the gatekeeper and the custodian. So if you put rubbish data in, you're going to get rubbish data out. And the amount of clients I've been to who have said, well, we've got loads and loads of data. And I said, but have you got the information? Data rich, information poor. And I think that's a really important point, because as they said this morning, you could collect tons and tons of data, but is it information? Is it actually useful? Is it actually being used? And how much data do you ultimately want to report? So at the minute, we're on a journey, and we see technology and the IoT as a way of supplementing our ability as people within the sectors that I deal with to actually enhance and embed and better what we do. And it's efficient. And I'll talk a little bit more about AI in a minute. So, is it a new landscape, or is it just a new way of doing things, basically? This sector is absolutely regulated to death. This is just a snapshot of all the reporting standards that we're required to adhere to for clients, the different types of reporting frameworks. Some of you will have heard of TCFD, some of you have heard of EFRAG, some of you will have heard for IFRS. I'm more than happy to run an in-depth session on ESG and regulatory reporting. And there are many, many organizations out there that will tell you they know what they're doing, but in fact they do not. And I think that is really, really important for business to talk to the professionals. Don't necessarily talk to us, talk to EY, talk to Deloitte. But when you're in this scope, and believe me, this is really coming, the use of technology within this is absolutely critical. And what no one's talked about today, which I find a little surprising, is the equivalent carbon costs of technology. Now, we ran this survey a while ago. We did it in partnership, and we did the research that if you take the cost of CO2 in pounds equivalent, a round-trip flight to the US is £2,000 pounds equivalent. To harness AI using 175 parameters BB is effectively what's 1.2 million. You do the equivalent expansion. AI is key, but my God, is it expensive in terms of carbon and in terms of the use of servers and technology around that. The other thing as well that we also haven't talked about today as well is the impact of societal licensing And where does the social modeling come into all of this? We talk about emissions all the time, and we talk about the technology that supports that. We work in numerous fields, and Eman's going to discuss a lot about what that means from a BOSCH perspective, as well in terms of sectors. But sustainable reporting and social reporting has the ability to enhance the way you do things from an environmental perspective as well. And I think that's really key. And we're one of the pioneers in that as well. AI is also intelligent, providing you're teaching it to do things in the right way. So AI is effectively defining tomorrow today, which is part of our strap lines, but you have to look at the balance between data versus information, and what do you ultimately want out the system. It's a snapshot of what we do. So we have smart AI within the business and in the organization, and we use it to test and interrogate client data from a sustainability reporting perspective. We've developed it in partnership with a European business, which we're really pleased with. And it enhances my team's ability to go in there and forensically challenge and use things differently. It's really clever stuff. So where are we? Are we there yet, true or false? Not yet, but we refer to it as being ready. Responsible, ethically directed intelligence, ready. Because inbuilt bias to IoT or IOST, as we call it, is a real risk, and you have to manage that. And that's where AI comes in. So we call it being ready. That is trademarked. Don't get any ideas. Are we definitely not ready? False, no. I think we're on a journey, and yes, that is that point about responsible, ethically directed intelligence. So, in closing, being on time, the future of the Internet of Sustainable Things, it's making a difference. Does anyone think it's going to go away? No. Comes back to my jar point. The sand, you can't get away with just filling it with sand. Equally, we can't get away with just doing the apples and carrying on. There are a lot of tech businesses in here, and I mentioned some startups in here, as well as some very big sustainable organizations as well. But I think harnessing AI in the right way, not any way, is key, and that's what we've done. And we took the decision to invest heavily as a firm. And somebody suggested before I came on stage, that's the UN Sustainability Development Pioneers sort of shortlist identity, where we're very passionate about aligning. We walk the walk. We do to our clients what we do to ourselves. And industry-specific engines will do things in different sectors in different ways, and you can't do everything all at once. We've talked about the processing power and the importance of that. But the biggest opportunity is we achieve the artificial intelligence and the Internet of Sustainable Things with ESG. But regulation drives business. You won't be doing all of this if the regulation didn't drive it. And harnessing regulation with AI and IOST means we can make an effective change. And that's very much what firms like mine are trying to achieve. I hope you found that thought-provoking and has woken you up after a long lunch, actually. I'm now going to hand over to Eman to talk about how this impacts in day-to-day business.
Thank you. The purpose of the presentation today is really to look to IoT in a different lens. I'm not here to lecture you as BOSCH about the IoT, but we're definitely going to show here not only our success, but lots of use cases we tried didn't go anywhere. So we will have an honest conversation here, and we will have to look together in how this market can be accessed. Is at the moment, my opinion, honest perspective, you had all great products, great presentation, but we are not breaking the market to scale up. Is it because of the technology? No. But let me show you a video from BOSCH. Promise you it's not really advertising, but just to give you an overview about what we're doing, and then we get into use cases.
Artificial intelligence can work wonders, especially when it meets things, real things, connected things, high-tech hardware. We at BOSCH should know, we make that hardware. And we know quite a lot about AI. AI can catapult high-tech hardware into a new era, an era of products that can think for themselves and their users. An era that opens up boundless new opportunities for all of us. In manufacturing, automated driving, healthcare, the home, robotics, environmental protection, the list is practically endless. It's happening here and now, and we are an integral part of it. By 2025, all Bosch products will either be AI-enabled or AI will have played a part in making them. Bosch brings together the virtual and the real, the power of AI and beneficial products for pioneering technology, invented for life.
So you can see here, we don't talk anymore about IoT. We moved on. We talk about AI or generative AI. Because what is IoT? It's actually about collecting data and mining the data what you are actually having. So means is that we have to look beyond this. And actually having Mark today is also all of the products what we are actually sharing today, making people sustainable. And that has to be the key point of commercializing the solutions. Nevertheless, not everything is, superb what we did. When we started the journey of IoT 5 years ago, we started to explore different sectors. And we started to look which actually sectors are more beneficial to then, kick off and pioneer IoT. And I will take you through some use cases we did. And one of them is obviously, the agriculture. Agriculture is 22 billion, the market, only in Europe. So you think that actually farming should be on the heart of this. Because IoT, you could collect data about the soil. You could give them information through long-term longevity about the unseasonal weather problems. But you could also be more efficient, more than 80%, when you actually increase the IoT technology within the farming. So we did this. And we include these technologies with using AI, because you have to compare data with basic data to actually recognize and clustering the business cases in that side of things. It's not only soil, it's across the board about the crop, the quality of the crop, and when that can be collected, etc. We managed to be very successful within 2 years. We used about 250 farms across Europe, and we tried to find use cases to finance all of this, because the farmers were very happy. But there's no way for them to finance it, because there's a pre-investment, at least. We're talking about over 100,000. The farmers and their products, actually, as you know, they're subsidized from Europe. So this use case didn't go anywhere. Next one. Milk. Milk is very, very complicated to harvest. And also is very complicated to transport. So you really need, by legislation and law, to make sure that the temperature of the milk has a different temperature, and also you need to make sure that it has a certain pH values. So it's very complicated, and actually it does make sense to have IoT solution for it, and also to, as I said, to use generative AI in leveraging comparative data in building up the business case. We did that in the US mainly, and it's becoming more and more because you have oat milk, soya milk, coconut milk, and all of it. But do you think this was successful or not? Can I see hands? Anyone? Guess? Successful? No. Let's go to the third use case. Parking. Parking is very tricky. So parking is a parking sensor. Has two use cases. One is that you could actually implement the sensors within your car. And it's anyway now, in any luxury car, and even actually in a standard cars, you will have partially parking solution, and you have also full parking solution. For example, Daimler has that, but also they can leverage the sensor technologies. If you have a car park, having the mounted parking technologies, they can actually park it by itself. That is actually, in somehow, is a hybrid use case. The one use case is through the OEMs, so you use the automotive manufacturer actually to implement the sensor technologies. And the other use cases is actually related partially to the public sector, and some is related to the private sector. The minute you are in connections to the private sector, is actually usually is very, I will say, minded people. So we will know that we are spending money, you're spending money, we will come to an agreement, there will be a commercial agreement, and we will go on. The minute you have the public sector there, it's really difficult. They have either no money, or they have no decision-making possibilities, or there is no interest. At least this is what we see. But some of the times, we think that it was a lack of framework and legislations to allow them actually to act. And I think this is one of the issues what we need also to discuss very openly. But partially, actually, this solution is successful. And you can see it in Germany, you can see it in lots of applications actually already done and dusted. We're using IoT solutions, we're also using AI on this, and we are developing more and more further. And we are using actually other partners as well to deliver it. XDK, I don't really have to tell you about it. I mean, this is in one-all sensor technologies, which is like a bridge. You can use it in manufacturing. You can use it in all sorts of applications. And that was a runner for BOSCH. I mean, we have earned millions and billions of it because it's a very easy to adopt, and it's cheap, and it's very usable anyway in lots of applications, and therefore, that was a success. Last but not least is the air quality monitor. You know, we are one of the biggest tier 1 suppliers. So we do manufacture the NOx sensors, which is actually related to the tailpipe for the combustion engines in specific diesel. And from that, we developed the air quality box. It does make sense. And we implement it in lots of cities. It actually helps you to identify the CO2 values, the NOx values in cities, and also it helps you to divert traffic and to understand dynamic traffic management in a perspective when you will have, for example, more traffic or less traffic, etc. So it's really, really was very positive. The minute we have to connect to the transport data. So this solution cannot work in isolation. It really needs a coherence in the implementations of the solutions within cities. Smart cities, if you like. And I have to say, it really depended on that side of the regions, where would we implement it. So for example, in some regions was really good collaboration. I think it was one of the solutions implemented in Madrid, and there were other solutions in the UK and etc. But overall, it didn't go anywhere. So it wasn't very successful. And what we did is that we took these NOx sensors, and actually we implemented to the asthma healthcare devices, which you see it now also testing, for example, COVID time. We developed that. We used the same sensors. So it was successful in different use cases, but not in the air quality. What do I wanted to say with all of this? Even BOSCH has success and errors. And overall, what we found out is that the way how we market the solutions is a failure as well, partially. Because when we look to the IoT as itself, it means nothing to the people outside. When you sell the whole picture, you will be sustainable. You will actually achieve net zero carbons within the 2030. That is a different game changer, because the public sector is, from European perspective legislation, 2035, they have to achieve a certain elements of KPIs of being sustainable. So we need to change the IoT or AIoT to AIOST. And I think this should be the way how we communicate. And I think that would be, in my opinion, and until now, what we saw in the marketplace, it did really make a change, because people started to connect with things what they are suffering. Mark mentioned this. It's not luxurious anymore to talk about ESG. We all have to achieve it. Some of us achieve scope 1 and 2, but some has to achieve scope 3, and that will be from 2030 onwards, latest 2045. So, in my opinion, let's work together. Let's try to create an ecosystem. Let's try to understand the errors and use cases what we have. I'm sure you have also others. And let's try to build a community. Maybe it will start with IoT Spark. And maybe that is the community and the forum which we actually should discuss these cases in very open way. But nevertheless, I would like to thank actually Dario and the L'Oreal team to having us today here, and I really would like you to give an applause to him and his team because they did a brilliant, brilliant job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for